Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today we're covering the upcoming crowdfunding campaigns for January of 2024. We've had a slow past few weeks as the end of the year winds down, as people take breaks, as people just spend time with their families instead of running whatever crowdfunding campaign there is. And if your wallet is itching for something to spend money on, well, we're going to have 15 or 20 campaigns to go over today, with links and timestamps to everything down below. Although, of course, this is only the start of January. As the month fills out, you're going to find more and more campaigns that are catching your interest, which is why it's always a good reminder to go ahead and subscribe to Shelf Clutter. Shelf Clutter is going to have the information on a weekly basis, the most up-to-date information, all the new campaigns that are hitting the webs, the internets, all those various things, the Kickstarters and the game founds, and the back kits. He's going to have the most up-to-date information, when campaigns move, when campaigns get added. Plus, he covers more campaigns than I do, because I try to select, the nature of trying to fit all into one video, is I try to select the more popular ones, as opposed to he'll try to have all your bases covered. That, and he's also at 9,870 subs, which means the next 130 of you that subscribe to him can basically be giving him a New Year's gift, a little bit of a New Year's gift, you know, welcome to 2024, Shelf Clutter. You've been giving to this community for 4 years, and let's go ahead and cross that 10K mark. So, Shelf Clutter, make sure to go ahead and follow and subscribe. Plus, of course, you get to stay up to date on all the information. And with that, let's go ahead and start off the video, starting off with the first one, which is going to be the next Button Shy games, The Last Lighthouse from Scott Alms. This is going to be another continuation of the Button Shy series, the Simply Solo line from Button Shy and Scott Alms. This is going to be navigating your challenges of maintaining a lonely lighthouse while dealing with the various nightmares that are coming your way. This is going to be launching very shortly. In general, these campaigns are going to be slowly but surely throughout the month, and the last 3 or 4 are just ones that I don't have dates for at all. We have Carolingi. I don't know if this will be pushed off or not. It has been pushed off in the past, but Carolingi from Sea Cove Games, this is going to be coming over on GameFound. This is a area control game with a bag building mechanism where you're going to be selecting your actions every single round and putting them into the bag, and then planning around how they're going to come out. Every single round across 4 seasons, you're going to select 2 actions, put them into the bag, 8 actions across each year, and then each year there's going to be, I think a typical game is going to be 4 or 5 years, but it is variable. There's a bunch of ways to make it shorter or longer, all those things. I will have a sponsored playthrough coming on the channel, so make sure to keep your eyes tuned for that. It is a game, speaking frankly, the game's art doesn't pull me in. This is not a game that, based on the art, I have any interest in, but based on the gameplay, it's a very solid game. Of course, take into account sponsored gameplay and all that. That's going to be Carolingi, coming to GameFound shortly. Then we have Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I believe this is coming to BackKit. I'm not sure. Whenever I have these pages, it's not always 100% clear to me whether this is a kind of a call to action page for Kickstarter, or whether this is actually BackKit itself. It actually might be Kickstarter. Honestly, not really sure. But either way, this is going to be Monty Python and the Holy Grail, a board game. It has 10,000 people following it already, which makes sense. I mean, it's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I will say it's coming from Dynamite Games that don't really have a lot of standard modern game design under their belt. That, combined with an IP, makes me think that this may well be a game you're interested in. Just set your expectations accordingly. I don't know or see anything yet to believe that this is, you know, I hesitate to use the word real game, but I would say I don't know if I see enough here to make me confident that this is a game that is good in its own right versus appealing to the IP specifically. Not to say it's a bad game, I just don't see that information yet. So time will tell on this one. That's going to be Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Then we have over here, we have Omerta, the 5 Families. This is coming to you from Vesuvius Media. They have a bunch of things under their belt. They've done the Catapult Cannons, I think that's them, I'm pretty sure, or Catapult Kingdoms, whatever its name is. But either way, Omerta the 5 Families. This is going to be an area control and action management game as you try to, whoa, that didn't zoom in any further at all. Going to be an area control mob-themed game with action management and bidding and all that stuff. Could be an interesting one. Don't know much about it itself as far as what distinguishes from other games in the genre. That's Omerta the 5 Families. Then we have Spire's End, Rangitaki, I think that's how you pronounce it over here. There's going to be another story in the Spire's End series. There is Spire's End, they had Spire's End Hildegrad, and now they have Spire's End Rangitaki, continuing the series. This is basically a solo story game. You're going to have cards in front of you, you're going to make choices based on the cards themselves. There'll be a degree of story, a degree of choice. Moaki opens her mouth and heaves. Her tongue curls out over her lower lips and its throat bulges upwards. The seer reaches into her mouth and pulls out a small knife, followed by dripping cords of foul black ichor. She extends the knife to you. Finger or toe. Refuse or finger or toe. I mean, I only started halfway through the card, but that's already interesting. I had a chance to play Spire's End Hildegrad. Never played the original Spire's End. I did enjoy the story aspect of it. Gameplay-wise, a bit of a hit and miss for me. I think there were some elements that I really enjoyed, and some elements that felt a little more luck-driven. But Spire's End Rangitaki, continuing the series, the general genre of what this game is, which is a story-driven card game with a bunch of chapters. I believe this plays out across 3 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go find the part of the page where I think I saw that. 300 total, 3 chapters, each composed of 100 tarot-sized cards, and it is replayable. It's very much a choose-your-own-adventure story as you go through this. That's Spires and Rangitaki launching shortly. Over here, we have Jonda Games launching Explorers of Navoira. Explorers of Navoira is going to be, I guess, an action management game. I don't really know. It's a card-driven game. You have a bunch of cards on... Is it a card-driven game? I wouldn't call it a card-driven game either. This is a game which you're going to have a bunch of cards that are out in play every single round. Every single round, you go through a two arc phase of first selecting various cards to be able to take the actions on the cards or benefit from those symbols, which involve moving your explorer around the board, setting outposts, trying to build up your economy, or just your icons in general to be able to gain income from those every single turn. There's 5 colors of cards, and then as you go into the second phase, you're going to continue getting benefits based on the various tokens that were selected in reverse order. You're going to play it across, I believe, 3 rounds. That's going to be Explorers of Navoira, giving me very strong root vibes as far as the artist. I don't believe Kyle Farron is actually the artist. No, the art's by Meng Chunlin over here, so I don't think Kyle Farron is not the artist, but it does have Kyle Farron root vibes, at least to me. That's going to be Explorers of Navoira from Jonda Games. Jonda Games has a bunch of games under their belt already. They had Pioneer Rails and that space one that I'm not remembering offhand, like the Omega Sphere, the Omega something, I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong, not sure. But either way, Explorers of Navoira coming from Jonda Games on January 8th. Then we have Conan. Conan, the Monolith Red Nails expansion. There's going to be more Conan content. Conan's going to be one of Monolith's more popular titles. I think they have the Mythic Battle series, and then Conan is their 2 most popular offerings. And Conan's coming back to Kickstarter January 16th with more content for, the King Pledge is going to be back, but as well as the Monolith the Red Nails expansion, all the various content, all new versus mode, a whole bunch of new things for your Conan the Barbarian experience, giving you, cooperative and I guess versus gameplay, so competitive gameplay too. We have Metrorunner. This one's supposedly launching January 16th, although I do wonder if that will be pushed off. Reminder, of course, to subscribe to Shelf Clutter, who will have the most up-to-date information for you. But this is coming to you from Thunderworks Games. Thunderworks Games being in Metrorunner, a game that falls a little bit outside their normal, high fantasy line, although I will say they also have 10 penny parks, and they also have, what's that? The Santa Monica? No. Darn it, I'm blanking on the name. They have that beach one or whatever it is, but they also have, the 10 penny parks. They have other games that aren't purely in their role player adventures or role player line of games. But Metrorunner is going to be bringing you Cyberpunk to your table in a worker placement game that has a bit of a moving up the river kind of mechanic, similar to. I can't remember the name of the game, but similar to other games where you basically are going to be able to place a worker, but you can only place it up to 2 spots ahead every round unless you pay to move it anywhere. So you're either trying to optimize around your actual cash and the ability to be able to go anywhere, or alternatively around the actual board limitations itself as you choose various spots on the board, but within a certain range, so you can't just go across the entire board. So it's some sort of restriction no matter what it is. That's going to be Metrorunner over here, a whole bunch of other things going on in it as you go through this, but that's going to be a Cyberpunk worker placement game from Thunderworks Games. Then we're going to have we have the Among Cultists reprint and expansion coming to you from Godot Games. Among Cultists, which generally has been getting incredibly rave reviews. I have not had a chance to play my copy yet. I do hope to at some point. Well, I mean, that's the nature of having it. I definitely hope to at some point. Perhaps I'll have content for you by January 16th, but I wouldn't be too optimistic about it. That's coming close, and I'd want to play it a bunch of times before reviewing it. Maybe we'll see. I don't expect anything from me. But either way, Among Cultists over here coming to you from Godot Games, based on Among Us, but with its own spin, its own flavor, its own art presentation, and all that. This has gotten a lot of positive reviews and feedback since it came out, and they're coming back with a reprint and expansion to Among Cultists launching January 16th. Then we have Knight. Knight's going to be coming to you from Radek Ignacio, who has done a bunch of games already. He's done a bunch of roll and write games. Specifically, he's done Roll and Meow Cat Burglars, The Space Alone, Island Alone, a lot of games bundle. He's done a bunch of things, but his campaigns have gotten progressively more popular. I say that actually. I started to say progressively more popular, and then I realized 3,000 backers, 2,000 backers, 1,900 backers, so maybe not progressively more popular, but he has been building up a following. I would say that his first campaigns didn't do as well, but then he had Island Alone, which was a large hit over there, and then he continued to build off that hit, offering more and more roll and write games. And Knight has great art, great presentation, which, I mean, I shouldn't say, I don't know what the game will look like, but the actual art of the game. The art of the game itself, without taking into account the actual art of the things you're drawing on, that looks good. The art, it says Knight, and it looks good right now, at least so far. This is going to be a print and play game. That's the games he puts out. They're all print and plays, so if that's your genre, this is one to follow and keep your eyes tuned for, and if not, then not. Then we have over here, moving on, we have Blood Throne, The Tower of Sacrifice. This is going to be a January 18th title, and this is an RPG. It's a tactical RPG adventure, so I'm not entirely sure, because it says, enter a dark fantasy world on the brink of damnation, a cooperative board game of intense tactical RPG adventure for 1 to 7 players. So I'm not sure if this is a board game, an RPG, or a little bit of a hybrid of both. Don't have a ton of information on this one, but this is Blood Throne, The Tower of Sacrifice, launching January 18th. Then we have Etherium. Ethereum is going to be coming as well from a new creator. It's going to be launching again mid-January over here. This one out again. Not a ton of information on this from what I can see so far, but there is a degree of programmed movement going on here, which is a genre and mechanic I like. So I like programmed movement in general. I like seeing what people do with that concept. I am curious to see more, but I don't have more. I have, you know, some art, program movement, and we'll keep our eyes tuned as this launches later in January. Then we have over here, we have Storm Raiders. Storm Raiders designed by Shem Phillips from Arcus Games. Arcus Games who did Dreadful Meadows and Shelfie Stacker, is that the one before? But Storm Raiders looks delightful. It's a, you know, an area control game. There's race, raid, and salvage across lands to become the greatest Storm Raider in this new 1 to 4 player game designed by Shem Phillips. And the board, the presentation, all of that looks like this, which has me interested. I mean, this looks delightful. Also, it's from Shem Phillips, who, you know, obviously notable designer. It's from Arcus Games, who I like Dreadful Meadows quite a bit. So yeah, color me interested in this one, and we'll see. Anyways, moving on over here, we have Altered. Altered is going to be launching soon as well. I believe they're aiming for a January launch. This, I am very curious to see what will happen with this. I had a chance to see this one at Gen Con 2023. This is a TCG game, but it's a TCG game that's basically going to have the opportunity. It's going to have a physical presence, but you also scan every single card and you own it physically and digitally at the same time. There's not a digital interface to play your cards, at least not yet, so this is no Hearthstone, Magic Online, any of that. Although I would assume that would be in the works. I don't know for sure how things are going to play out. But this is Altered. I thought the gameplay was very well done overall. I don't know if it's enough to get me into a TCG, but I would say if this was a board game, I'd be interested in it. I don't know if I'm interested enough to dive into the world of TCGs, at least not over this one. Supposedly, it did have very similar gameplay to the new Star Wars deck building game, the new Star Wars trading card game and whatnot. Supposedly, they had very similar arcs as far as how the game is played, despite being developed completely separately. The art and presentation, I will say the art and presentation of Altered is absolutely top-notch. It's coming to you from the team behind Libelud or whatever, the team behind Seasons and Dixit and all that. So they have a ton of, I mean, the presentation looks incredible. I love the way the game looks, but honestly, the problem is that's pulling me in more than the gameplay itself. The gameplay is good. If it was a limited board game, I would go ahead and get it. I'm not going to dive into a TCG for it, but if you want to know about it, it's launching in January, so check that out. And then these next 4 are generic January dates. I don't have any specific, you know, they may get pushed off, they may not, but these last 4 we have generically for January. We have Eve over here, Eve Online, the board game. Don't have a ton of information about the gameplay, but, you know, 7,000 people following the campaign, coming to you from Titan Forge Games, who did the Lobotomy game, and a bunch of others as well. But Eve Online should be launching at some point in January. This could be an incredibly large, popular campaign, or not. Generally, 2023 has been an interesting year following IP games. A lot of video games turning into board games. Some have done incredibly well and have gotten, you know, well done incredibly well, and others have not. So I don't know which way EVE Online will go. A lot of it might come down to what the campaign looks like. A lot of it might come down to the fan base itself. 7,000 people is both a lot, but also something like EVE Online, you know, who knows? The follow-through ratio on these types of board game IPs tends to be a little lower than your average follow-through ratio, because a lot of people are familiar enough that they're interested, but then when the page pops up, there's not necessarily always enough there to pull them in. So I am very curious to see how this will do. That's going to be EVE Online, launching at some point in January. We have The Thinning Veil, Cormac Airt on the Other Side of Midnight, which is a mouthful of a title. That's a mouthful of a title. I think the problem is they can't just call it The Thinning Veil, because The Thinning Veil was previously on Kickstarter. They tried launching the campaign twice. Unfortunately, it didn't fund either time. To be clear, it did well, but, you know, when you have a $150,000 goal, $100,000 just isn't enough, unfortunately. So even though it did well, it didn't fund on either of the instances, which means they're coming to GameFound with a precursor title to try to get people on board, and then from there relaunch The Thinning Veil again. But the problem is that means they can't call it The Thinning Veil, so instead they call it The Thinning Veil, Cormac Airt on the Other Side of Midnight, which again is a mouthful of a title. Like, we need something shorter, or at least we need a dash or a colon or something. Something needs to go on that title. But either way, this is going to be a solo dungeon crawler and adventure game set in the world of The Thinning Veil. So, solo dungeon crawler-ish, or a world crawler, world adventure. This looks interesting. I'm intrigued by the gameplay itself. Don't know a ton more about this, at least not yet. But yeah, it looks good. But The Thinning Veil always looked good. It just hasn't managed to fund yet. The miniatures look good. Overall, it looks interesting. Looks interesting. I am intrigued without knowing a ton more about the actual gameplay, past the general idea of solo dungeon crawler. So, interested in from that alone. Moving on over here, we have Cryptozoologist. Cryptozoologist is going to be launching, I believe, at some point in January. Again, this is one that has been pushed off already, so I don't know if it'll be pushed off again. But this has you tracking down cryptids. You're going to be tracking down cryptids. They do exist. Turns out you were right all along. There's a little polyomino placement puzzle as well, as you try to find the cryptids and level up your character across the course of this game. That is going to be Cryptic Nature, launching, I believe, on Kickstarter, I believe, in January, assuming things don't get pushed off. And then lastly, we have Philharmonix over here. Again, another one that has been pushed off, so we'll see if this launches in January or not. but Philharmonix is going to be having you manage a space opera, an epic space opera for 1 to 4 players. This is a worker placement game where every round the strength of the actions is randomized, and you have to engage with the game and also engage in your action economy based on how those actions play out. So you always know the types of actions available, but the way those actions are is every round is a little bit different as you ultimately try to build up a better crew with better, musical notes and instruments and all these things as you try to go ahead and play your symphony for the various people in the galaxy who all want music, space, music, and all that stuff. And that's what we have for January. We don't have a ton of things for January. That's all we have for January, at least as of right now. Although, again, reminder, subscribe to Clutter. He'll have videos for you every single week showing you what's coming up. On my end, as far as things that are coming up that have my interest the most, I'd say probably Storm Raiders is probably my most interested. If we're doing picks of the month over here, picks of the month, I think let's go ahead and go through them quickly. Carolingi over here, I really enjoy the gameplay on that, so that's going to be strong over there. We have a bunch over here. Spire's and I like. Explosion Navoira, I need to play more. I'd say probably Storm Raiders. I think Storm Raiders is going to be my most anticipated from all of these, and then Carolingi coming in probably second. It's hard to say for sure. Carolingi is going to be an interesting one for me because I really enjoy the gameplay of it, but I really don't love the way it looks. The art does not pull me in at all, and historically speaking, games that don't pull me in visually, but I do like practically, they don't always stick around. So I am curious about Carolingi. So I'm going to stick around with Storm Raiders for my pick of the month, at least as of right now. But that is basically everything we have for the month of January for what's coming up. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one.